What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Coffee Cup News. And today I just wanted to sit and chat with you about decaf coffee. First, a little bit of history on the decaffeination process. It was actually invented in 1903 by Ludwig Roselius and Carl Weimer. And what that looked like was soaking the beans in a brine, salt water, and then decaffeinating it with benzene. And this was practiced for a while and was done away with because of the health concern of using benzene to decaffeinate the bean. Now, one of the biggest concerns for coffee enthusiasts like myself isn't the fact that the beans are decaf. It's not the fact that I don't get my caffeine, though I do love my caffeine. Everybody knows that. But it's that the flavor profile will be affected by the decaffeination process. What happens is, though you're trying to just strip the caffeine, you end up stripping the flavor along with it, because a lot of these methods that are very effective are also very harsh to the bean itself. So let's go ahead and get started with the decaffeination process list. Number 1, in the direct method, the beans are steamed and then they are put in a solution, washed in a solution of dichloromethane and ethyl acetate. And they're continually rinsed in that for 10 hours. And then they're taken out and given another steam bath so that the remainder of those chemicals is washed off of them. I would say that this is on the harsher method side for decaffeination process. So on the opposite side, the indirect method, it's pretty similar to the direct method. The same chemicals are used, but first the beans are soaked in water. And it's like a soup of coffee, like super brewed coffee. And then the beans are removed, and they use the same chemicals, dichloromethane and ethyl acetate, to strip the water of the caffeine, but leaving the solids. And then they soak some fresh beans inside of that solution of the solids that had the caffeine removed from it through those two chemicals. And that way the solids that are in the coffee have nowhere to go, and so they stay intact within the coffee. But it's decaffeinated through the water process. So this is called water processing decaffeination. And it's very similar to both Swiss water and to direct method. It's like the in-between to both of these decaffeination processes. And then you have Swiss water method. And this is the one that I like the most because there's no harsh chemicals used in it. And I think it tastes the best out of all of the decaffeinated methods there are to choose from. I think the coffees that are decaffeinated through the Swiss water process end up tasting the best because here's how the method works. So you start off with the beans. You soak them in hot water, warm water, and the solids and the caffeine are removed from the bean. Then you take the beans out, discard them. You take that solution, the solids and the caffeine in the water, and then you run it through a filter. Now it leaves behind all of the solids, but all the caffeine is discarded. So then you take that solution, the solids, and you soak a new fresh batch of coffee in with the new solution that only has the solids. And what ends up happening is the warm water at this point, the solids in the coffee have nowhere to go because the solids in the water are there, but the caffeine is still released. And then you take the beans out and filter out the caffeine again. And to me, this is the least harsh method for decaffeinating coffee, but at the same time preserving the maximum amount of flavor in the coffee as well. The next method is called CO2 process, and it's also known as supercritical fluid extraction. And I'm not going to pretend to fully understand this extraction method, but it sounds pretty harsh. Here's what they do. The coffee is pressurized at 73 to like 300 atmospheres of pressure, separating for 10 hours, soaking, separating the coffee from the caffeine. Then some of the pressure is let out, some of the CO2 is let out, and depressurizing This reminds me of space. This is like space decaffeination. And then is run through a charcoal filter to separate the coffee solids from the caffeine. This sounds pretty harsh to me, but the research that I've done says that the benefit is it's not using some of those other chemicals that we had talked about. And the last method we're going to look at is triglyceride method. And what this is separating the coffee from the caffeine using coffee oil. So this sounds pretty interesting to me. This sounds like a good alternative to maybe the Swiss water process. Have to do a little bit more research on it. But basically what happens is you take coffee, you soak it in super hot water temperatures. Then the next step is to remove it from that, put it in coffee oils, and then it sits in that at super high temperatures, thus separating the coffee from the caffeine into the oil, and it's trapped in the oil, but it preserves the flavor. So then after that, it's the two are separated and the coffee is dried. Just from what I've read, I think the two that I like the most are Swiss water method and the triglyceride method. Though just purely from taste, I like the Swiss water process decaffeination method the most. So what I really want to know is, what is your opinion on decaf? Do you ever drink decaf coffee? Do you find a difference between decaf and regular coffee when you're drinking it at home? And is there ever a time where decaf is appropriate, but are you kind of sad when you're drinking it because you're shedding some tears because it just doesn't taste as good? And as always, remember, Coffee Cup News is where you get your coffee news. And if there's any other processes that I missed, go ahead and list them in the comments. Thanks.